The United States military, $850 billion budget, 750 bases in 80 countries, 11 aircraft carrier strike groups, the most advanced fighter jets on the planet, and yet there's a single country that could cripple that entire war machine without firing a shot. Not Russia, not Iran, not North Korea, China. But here's the twist. America built the trap itself, handed over the keys, and paid China to lock the door. This is economy and empire where we expose the financial systems that control nations, the hidden dependencies that shape wars, and the economic traps built in plain sight. Today, we're re-explaining how the Pentagon outsourced its own war-making capability to its primary adversary, and why it could chunk it back. To understand the trap, go back to 1971. Richard Nixon severed the dollar from gold and opened relations with China. The logic was simple. Split the communist bloc, access cheap labor, boost corporate profits. By the 1990s, American factories flooded into China. Wall Street loved it. Shareholders loved it. The pitch was irresistible. Cut costs by 70%. Watch stock prices soar. But there was a hidden cost. Every factory that moved to China was a factory that closed in America. Every supply chain routed through Shenzhen could be severed. Every component made in Guangdong was one America could no longer make on its own. The Pentagon ignored the warnings. The trap began with rare earth elements. 17 obscure metals: neodymium, dysprosium, terbium inside every piece of modern military hardware. Guided missiles, jet engines, radar systems, night vision goggles. Without rare earths, the F-35 doesn't fly. The Aegis defense system doesn't work. The Virginia-class submarine stays in port. In the 1980s, the U.S. mined 100% of its own rare earths. Then China flooded the market with subsidized rare earths sold below production cost. American mines shut down. By 2010, China controlled 97% of global production. Then came the test. In 2010, during a territorial dispute with Japan, China cut off rare earth exports. No warning, no negotiation. Japan's electronics industry nearly collapsed. The message to Washington was clear: this could happen to you. But the Pentagon had already outsourced too much to turn back. By the 2000s, China wasn't just manufacturing consumer goods, it was manufacturing defense components, circuit boards for fighter jets, microchips for missile systems, batteries for drones. A 2014 Pentagon report found counterfeit Chinese electronics in critical defense systems, cargo planes, missile guidance platforms. The problem wasn't espionage, it was structural dependence. Defense contractors no longer controlled their own supply chains. A single Raytheon missile might contain components from 12 different Chinese subcontractors the Pentagon had never audited. Then there was the dollar recycling trap. China ran massive trade surpluses, took those dollars, and bought U.S. Treasury bonds. By 2013, China held over $1.3 trillion in American debt. The paradox: the more America imported from China, the more China financed America's deficit spending, including military budgets. China didn't need to attack, it just needed to make itself indispensable. The illusion shattered in 2018 with the trade war. Both sides tried to decouple, but only one discovered how trapped it really was. When the U.S. banned exports to Huawei and ZTE, American semiconductor companies lost their biggest customers. Intel, Qualcomm, Micron, all hemorrhaging revenue. Then came COVID-19. America couldn't get masks, ventilators, or antibiotics, 90% made in China. The Pentagon realized the same supply chain collapse would hit defense manufacturing in a real war. Want to build more F-35s? You need Chinese rare earths, more Patriot missiles, Chinese microchips, expand drone production, Chinese battery components. The war machine had outsourced its ammunition factory to the enemy. A leaked Pentagon report showed 300 defense contractors rely on Chinese suppliers for components with no domestic alternative. Not difficult to replace. No alternative. Taiwan is the perfect case study. The U.S. pledged to defend Taiwan if China invades, but Taiwan produces 92% of the world's advanced semiconductors, including chips and American fighter jets, tanks, and missile systems. If China takes Taiwan, it controls the semiconductor choke point. Every advanced weapon America builds would require Chinese approval. Even reshoring efforts hit the same trap. The CHIPS Act allocated $52 billion to bring semiconductor manufacturing back. But building a single advanced chip fab takes 5 years and still requires equipment from firms that source materials from China. You can't decouple from a supply chain you spent 30 years integrating. The solutions have been predictably ineffective. Reshoring, moving supply chains to Vietnam, India, Mexico. But Vietnam's rare earth processing is minimal. India's semiconductor ecosystem is a decade behind. Mexico still imports Chinese inputs. You're not eliminating dependency or adding middlemen. The Defense Production Act aimed to restart domestic rare earth mining, but environmental regulations and permitting delays mean new American mines won't be operational until 2030. China, meanwhile, is locking up future supply with deals across Australia, Africa, and South America. The trap isn't just economic, it's temporal. America is rebuilding in years what China constructed over decades. This isn't new. In the 1930s, Japan imported 80% of its oil from the U.S. When Roosevelt imposed an embargo in 1941, Tokyo chose war Pearl Harbor. The difference now: China doesn't need war. It's already won economically. The U.S. imports $500 billion more from China than it exports. That's $500 billion in annual leverage. Europe relies on Chinese solar panels, batteries, and rare earths for its green transition. If China turns off the tap, the entire European climate agenda collapses. Globalization wasn't about free trade, it was about building dependencies. The countries controlling choke points control everyone else without firing a shot. 3 takeaways. First, outsourcing isn't just economic, it's national security. Every offshore factory is a vulnerability. Second, financial interdependence doesn't prevent conflict, it changes the battlefield. The next great power war will be fought with export bans and supply chain disruptions. Third, the trap is bipartisan, a systemic failure driven by corporate profits and the illusion that economics and geopolitics could be separated. Here's the truth: America's war machine isn't trapped because China is stronger. It's trapped because America chose convenience over sovereignty. For 30 years, Washington believed trade would make China democratic. Instead, trade made China powerful and America dependent. The question now isn't whether America can escape. It's whether America is willing to pay the price measured in living standards, consumer prices, and political will. So far, no one wants to pay it. Subscribe for more breakdowns. Comment: can America escape this trap? Next video: how the dollar became a weapon.